Let's check in with the doc and look at things with a wider lens. Pastor Richards on OMG.
When he's at church.
Well, I can't help it. I'm
can't-
already in that habit.
You're in that,
so
you're in that, you're in that zone. Yeah. Good morning, Doc.
Hey, good morning, Bing.
I'm trying to get baby doll to call you Pastor, but she's insisting on calling you
I
Dr.
do call him
Richards.
Pastor. That's
She
what you
calls
see.
me
There you go.
Pastor. That's
You messed up what you were trying to say. That's
Being you and the Neil order, I have to thank you guys this morning and really appreciate what you guys are doing. Trying to help us turn a corner here and trying to really just keep us focused forward. And I realize that's not the easiest thing to do, and you guys really have tried that this morning. I appreciate the both of you. You know that, right?
One of us in here trying really, really hard. She ain't really get it yet, but she's trying really hard. I'm not saying who. I didn't call any name, okay?
because there's so many females in here.
Yeah, I know. I know. But I did listen to Sir James this morning, actually. I like listening to him, and some of the things that he talked. Every time he talks, because of his many years on not just with a Caribbean perspective, but also a world perspective. I pick up on tidbits of things and looking at the world through his eyes and how the world has morphed through his eyes. If we listen well, there's a whole lot that we can learn. So it's very, very instructive every time you have him on.
Pastor, I don't think a lot of people realize that Sir James will be 90 years old.
Wow.
Come May next year. 90 years old. And I think that he will be, his mother lived to 100.
What you guys doing now on back way that
I don't know. I
They
don't
said
know.
it's the fish
I don't
oil
know.
or something like that.
But it's certainly the whale because they kind of
Whale oil.
not the whale. I don't know.
But it's not just that, but he keeps up with things. He really does keep up with stuff, and whenever he comes on, it's not just history and historical perspective. Although I have heard people say, "Oh, when he comes on, I just get some things from the past." But he's very, very current. I mean, the way he spoke about stuff this morning that you asked him, even the update last night on the Lebanese situation there.
He's on top of things, Doc. I speak to Sir James almost every night. Almost every night.
I hope you're learning.
And it's never the same thing whenever I speak to him. It's always something new.
So he's your mentor?
Well,
You can admit.
but I don't want Bassett to hear me this morning. but he speaks, he reads a lot.
Yeah.
He reads a lot. Like you, Doc.
Someone asked me about that yesterday, and I told them why. Much of the education you get is not going to be what's in. I told you before, Bing, I had a really remarkable supervisor in my doctoral studies. I hated him at one point because he tried to kill me. When I say he tried to kill me, I actually this is true story, guys. I led not to the extent of Dr. Gonzalez in his uprising on the university, but I had enough of him and what he was trying. Teaching us doctoral seminar courses. And the kind of work that he was requiring of you, and I had done doctoral seminar courses before prior to taking him, and for what he was teaching, it was like twice what others were expecting of you and demanding of you in doctoral seminar courses. You would have to take a book, read it in one night, and be ready to do your not just read it in one night, but be ready to do your presentation in class. He would say, go to the library, check this book, da-da-da-da-da. This is an interesting perspective. And then you're supposed to give presentations in class the next day based on that and basically be open to any question at all on that book. So you can't just skim the book. You had to digest the book in one night. And I had enough of it, and there were a number of us in that doctoral seminar courses, and I said, this is not right, it's not fair, we got to do something about it. And we talked about going to, whoever was, I forgot the name of the board that was monitoring him. And but at the end of the day, when I came to doing my dissertation, he was on my supervision team, and he was the guy that I really respected the most because he pushed me to limits that I never thought I could be pushed to, and his rationale, behind it, he gave me. He said, "Look, you're going to have the title doctor behind your name. People are going to expect that they can ask you anything, and
right.
you should be able to, at least have a perspective and give some things." And so it doesn't matter that my field was in education.
Right.
I mean, he told me that I needed to basically consume as much as I could of everything else, because people are not just going to ask me about education; they're going to ask me about everything else. So that's the long and the short of that. So I love reading tubing. Yes,
I know. You go into your office, you see it's a same.
Actually, that's what I was doing this morning. I came in very, very early, and today's my research day. So for writing, because you don't just get up and preach a sermon.
Yes.
All right. You have to think things through, look at things from a world perspective. In fact, a good friend of mine, Minister, I won't call his name, Minister Adolf Davis, sent me a really interesting video about how the church is faring in Europe, and what some of the churches have been turned into museums or art showpieces. One of them is Frankenstein Bar or something like that. The other one has become a place for skateboarding. Church has become, a place where you can go in and do your skateboarding and stuff like that. So, he sent those to me, and they're becoming part of my reflection and research for what I'm going to be doing this weekend in church. So, you research, you consume information, and you are well informed about the world. And that is, you see, Sir James Bing, and people like him, you continue to remain relevant because you continue to consume information and have a method of synthesis. It's just not a matter, as I do lectures from time to time, I tell students information is everywhere. It is your ability now to synthesize information. What is your method of synthesis, and how can you weave things together to make sense, to make a coherent whole, and how you can communicate from that synthesis to the people who have not gone to the places you have gone intellectually, etc., etc. So, Sir James does that with remarkable.
I'll say this to guys, and to you too, Daniel. I benefit from that, from Sir James.
Yeah,
I benefit a lot from, if I don't get something, I don't understand something, by picking up the phone and call. He knows everything. Whether his opinion I agree with or don't agree with, he will always have an opinion on something. And he gets that from reading. He gets that from reading and experience as well too.
But the thing that I've come to realize, though, is that people with the lack of knowledge, the people who have a sort of social superiority over the people with the knowledge, being consume that for a while, think upon it, chew upon it, digest it. But I think the ignorant are leading the intelligent.
Which bring me to the question I want to ask you. This morning we talked about a video that we have on our Instagram page, Dr. Richards. I am sure if you see that video, it will blow you away. I know we've spoke about this with you several times. This won't be the first time, but I think it's relevant to have your input again on this matter.
IPV, intimate partner violence. I think that's what you're referring to. Being I've spoken, like you're right, I've spoken about this, but again, my perspective is not valued. It's not appreciated. Because I don't try to be popular being, I really don't, and I don't try to be sensational in what I say. So sometimes maybe I come across as boring because I try to think the thing through and seek ways in which it can be addressed. And this matter of IPV, intimate partner violence, is a damning matter in our society, and I don't know that we are addressing it in the right, because again, how you address something, you have to know what's wrong before you try to fix what's wrong. And that's been my simple thesis throughout all that I have said about IPV. Again, I'm going to say IPV, but I mean intimate partner violence, domestic, abuse between lovers and all of that. You can't fix something if you have no way of identifying what's wrong and what's causing it. And that goes to what I said, the ignorant basically will lead the informed. Because I come on here and I try to look at the thing from an informed perspective, because IPV is not new, and the volume of studies out there and research related to it, suggestions as to how you can navigate your way and your society through it. It is not a novel thing. We are not the only country that's facing this, and it's not a first. So there's a lot there to draw on to understand it and to work your way through it. But we deal with this thing more so in an episodic manner, being episodic. Meaning that once an episode arises, like the gutter boy or any other thing else, the gutter boy is the new one that you were talking about this morning. But there are others, and as these episodes surface, we talk about them, and then they die, and then the next one surfaces, and we talk about them. Very episodic. Mostly we would talk about shaming them as a solution, or locking them up as a solution, or harsh penalties upon them, or persecuting them to the hilt as solutions. These are well-intentioned but emotional responses to a deep-seated social problem. Truth be told, the issues related to IPV, domestic violence, domestic abuse, are multifaceted. And because of that, you have to understand that there are multiple factors that play into why gutter boy, for example, would beat up on his girlfriend. Why would gutter boy do that? And you have to stop, pause. Don't just give the emotional response. But why would gutter boy beat up on his girlfriend? And you again, there are about four possible main reasons why. Okay, you say, well, he's angry, or he's stupid, or you say he has no self-control, and you can say all of that. But if you dig deeper, you begin to find more salient, what we call correlates. I have talked on this radio before about the fact that you cannot dismiss biological correlates. There are biological factors related to brain functioning, the administrative functioning of the brain, brain abnormalities, head injuries, developmental factors of youth. I can go on and on. These are all biological factors. You can't rule out biological correlates. There are biological factors that you see a man beating a woman, beating the hell out of a woman, and don't just assume a guy is drunk, or that guy is off, or that guy he's just a gutter rat or something. No, there might be some biological, get that. There are also chemical correlates. I've talked about those too. Some of these guys, they look sane on the outside. They're thumping music, playing DJ. Nothing against Flex and them guys, don't get me wrong. But but these guys are also substance users and substance abusers. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them, whether it is as what we call innocuous as let's say alcohol consumption, but some don't limit it to alcohol consumption. And so you have chemical correlates. Chemical correlates will affect the way you think, function, your cognitive functioning, how you think, how you behave, how you respond to triggers and stimuli, because you have ingested. This is not who you are on a normal day-to-day basis, but get past 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, when you have used that substance and you're out partying, it is going to affect your behavior. And so you have to address how you are going to affect the use of chemicals and substances. But I think, to Mr. Weeks' point this morning, a large factor in our situations of IPV, intimate partner violence and domestic abuse, etc., what we would call the social correlates. In terms of and these are not things you don't solve this by beating the guy, locking up gutter rat or gutter boy. You don't solve it by these guys. You don't solve it by shaming episodically. When each episode arises, you shame the person. You don't solve it because the social correlates are more ingrained and form part of your social structure. And social structure can change, but they're not going to change episodically or overnight or month by month. But social structure requires intentional approach from the government, of course, and other social stakeholders, church and others, to change like home and how is parenting done, parenting education, which to Mr. Weeks' point this morning is a huge player in how you shape a boy. By the time got a boy at 19, by the time got a boy beats a woman, he's 20 and he beats a woman, basically that is a manifestation of stuff that would have happened when he was 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and all of that. So by the time he gets 20, the thing is already ingrained in his social DNA. At some point, he is going to beat a woman because of the dysfunctions within his home.
What does this mean, though, Doc? Because got a boy had it done, experienced it in his home, or he had it done to him. What does this mean? That he's got a license to go out and do it?
Good question, Bing. Excellent. Social determinism does not excuse a man and you are okay, his parents failed and therefore he has a license to do it. I am only looking at the causal factor. The truth is poor parenting will lead to poor children. Dysfunctional home will lead to a dysfunctional society. You can't escape that. But that doesn't mean that you say, oh, me or my, you take this chicken little approach, the sky is falling. We can do nothing about it. I'm trying to show us why the band-aid approach of shaming and locking up and throwing away the key and etc., or flog him in public, which some societies will do for certain things.
So what is the solution to got the boy?
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. The solution is to understand, and the solution is not short-term. We can take short-term measures to appease our social conscience. That's what short-term measure will do. Oh, we have done something. But as we do these things episodically in short-term, you can lock away all the boys that are doing this. Or you can beat them, or you can shame them, or you can put them out in public naked for people to spit on them. You can do all of that. But you will not solve the problem of IPV. That's all I'm trying to say. The short-term measures won't work. You have to understand the long view. And I get irritated with people who take the short view because it's a salve and it is an appeasement for their social consciences to make them feel, oh, we are doing something about it. It's not doing something about it.
But at least taking the short view, isn't that better than doing nothing at all?
Bing, that's not the thing. You're making this binary now between taking the short view and taking the long view or doing nothing at all. I am saying, in terms of what is ideal, while taking the short view, again, give a sense. For example, don't get me wrong, I think that if you impose the incredible penalties, particularly public shaming, put them out in public, have people beat on them when they pass by or something like that, don't get me wrong, I think that will provide some sort of a disincentive in the immediate period. Don't get me wrong, particularly in our story-related culture. And when I say story-related culture, where we like stories, we see something, we pass by, we take a picture of it, we take a little video of it, and we put it on the internet, and it plays over and over a gazillion times. That's the kind of culture we have. So yes, if you do these kinds of things in this kind of milieu, of course it will have sort of an inhibiting effect. It will. So I am not saying that these short-term measures can't help to alleviate in a period. But in terms of the long-term solution, you can't have long-term solutions if you don't understand the correlates, if you don't understand the foundational causes, if you leave homes unaffected, if you don't address what's happening in school, which, again, how schools are conducted, the kind of disciplines that can be executed in schools, not beaten. Don't get me wrong on that. I've made it clear how I feel about beating in school and all of that. But if for example, home
no,
school...
we're out of time, we got to wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm talking about the social correlates. That will... Changing and re-engineering social correlates take a long period, and therefore I think that as a society you can employ the short-term approaches of shaming and beating and punishing, but at some point we have to begin to as we get past biological correlates and chemicals and psychological, which I have not addressed, the main one that we really need to be paying attention to, how can we tweak our social correlates in order that 20 years down the road we do not continue this process processing belt of producing men and boys who behave like this. It's not an easy fix, but it can be fixed. Thank you for the time.
Catch you on Monday morning, Doc.
God's willing. Thank
God's
you.
willing.
Let's check in with the doc and look at things with a wider lens. Pastor Richards on OMG.